Hey guys, welcome to a Widow Story podcast. My name is Kim and I am your host. Today we have a lovely guest, Danielle. She is joining us. I found her on TikTok and I'll let her later on. She'll tell you how you can find her. But I started seeing her journey and I definitely wanted to invite her. And I reached out, I contacted her, and she was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I'm really thankful for that. So before we get started, you guys, if you haven't already, please make sure that you're hitting that like button, you're sharing, and if you haven't already, make sure that you follow. Hi, Danielle. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. So, of course, the way I definitely always get started, I definitely just want to know about your love story. We always want to start from the beginning. And then I'm really just going to take my cues from you and I'm just going to go wherever you lead me. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
I met my late husband, Aaron, senior in middle school. We became middle school sweethearts. We met at the age of 12. I never forget, we were actually getting ready to leave from a basketball game. And he walks up to me with this like crumbled piece of paper and it had, "Would you be my girlfriend" on it? Yes or no? And I had my older brother Dominique there, and he took the paper and he crumbled it up, and he was like, "We're not doing that." Because he's like, I'm the baby sister. He's like, "You can't have boyfriends." And so Aaron was like, "I'm gonna make you my wife one day." So he walks off. I walk off, and Aaron was like very cool. Everybody loved him. I'm very shy. Like I stayed to myself. So he was one of those popular guys. He did sports, and all the girls liked him. Like everywhere he went, he was just like his energy just attracted people. So
Mhm.
for him to actually like me, I was like, that's weird. Like it just didn't make sense to me back then. So we ended up having a language arts class together. The teacher name was Miss D, and she ended up sitting us next to each other. So like he would like kick my chair and stuff and try to make himself known. And I think it was just more of like curiosity for him
Mhm.
because I wasn't like, getting back at him. Like he wanted something he could not have at that time.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, oh my God, this little quirky dude. It's like it was so funny. So we ended up like just talking, and we lost connection once I moved to Chicago because I grew up in the suburbs of Bolingbrook, Illinois. So
Okay.
that's where I met him. And then when I moved to Chicago in eighth grade, um, he ended up finding me on Facebook. That's when Facebook became like really popular. And he was like, "Hey, I remember you. We went to school together, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Yeah." And so we started following each other. And he was a workaholic. Like that's all he would do. He would work 12-hour shifts, all of this stuff. And um, once we got out of, I want to say, once we got out of high school, I ended up getting pregnant, and I had my first child, Bella. And he knew I was pregnant. He said, "I knew you were pregnant because you ghosted me." And I was like,
Faith in every thread, style in every step. Shop a Stylish Heart faith-based sweatshirts today. www.astylishheart.com.
I didn't mean to. So he, I felt so bad. But he was like, "I'll still be there." And he's been in my oldest daughter. She's 13 now. He's
Okay.
been in her life since she was 4 months old. So, she has definitely I want to say she brought us together even closer because he wasn't a father. I made him a father. He begged me to have like kids. He was like, "I want to have a big family," and we ended up having 7 kids together. So that's a little bit about. I can tell you more. It's just a little bit about like how we got to where we were,
Mhm.
and we went through a lot of struggles together. Like our first pregnancy was not easy because
Mhm.
I didn't get pregnant right away in 2014. So we ended up having to go through cycles of trying to get pregnant, and then we finally got pregnant. And he was super ecstatic because it was a boy, and he was like, "I'm gonna name him Junior. Are you okay with that?" I'm like, "No, I don't want him to be a junior." And then once this our son came out, we ended up naming him Junior. So it's just like it's funny. Like it our I want to say the most thing that I miss about him is
Mhm.
just his personality. Everything like the stability that he provided for us.
Yeah.
And to see him interacting with the kids. He was a big kid himself. So like he would walk around running around with the kids, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like little things that was like very very attractive seeing in a man that wants to be a father.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have like a beautiful love story. So I love that. I love it. And, just a little bit, you don't have to go into it. If you could just tell us a little bit about how you became part of this awful club that we are in.
Yes. So it was 2023 when I first became a part of this club. The beginning of 2023 just started off as like a really weird year for us. My husband had talked a lot about like having life insurance, having things in order, and just like kind of making sure that like I can hold things down if something was to happen.
Hmm.
And at the time, we're 29. We hadn't even turned 30 yet. So we're 29. And I'm just like, I'm listening to him and I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand. And then he was like, I'm going to get life insurance through my job and I'm going to, make sure everything is okay. And I said, okay, that's fine, honey. And I asked him, I said, why are you talking like that? And he was like, I just want to, he's like, so much stuff be happening. And I just want to make sure that everything's okay. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And I want to say by like March, he had got sick and because he suffered from asthma. And
Hmm.
when I met him, he had asthma and he always carried around an inhaler. So it was nothing that I didn't know. It was nothing that I did not know when it came to what he was dealing with. It was just, he said honey, 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 it's a butterfly. It was just more so like he had like a breathing issue that he could not grasp. Mind you, we moved from Illinois down to Texas in 2020. So
Hmm.
the climate was very different for his lungs, for anybody that is not used to the Midwest versus coming down dealing with Texas in its dry heat. So when we got here, he had been hospitalized already 4 times. And in March was the fourth time. And he was like, I just can't breathe. Like my chest, everything just feels like it's caving in. And I said, like, what do you mean? And he was like, every time I go to work, because he was working under semi trucks. He was a diesel mechanic, so he was working under semi trucks all day, and he was like, it just feels like somebody's laying on my chest. Put it down. And so we ended up having to have him get on all this new medication. And I will say that he was stubborn enough that he did not take it. I don't know what it is with men. He's like, I feel like you'll take care of me if something happens. I'm like, yeah, I will, but I want you to take your medicine for everybody. At this time, I'm still pregnant. I did not have our seventh child, Brooklyn, yet. So it was just so much going on. We ended up moving because we thought it was the apartment that was causing like the pollution because we had a dog. We just had so much going on in our apartment, and we were living with amongst other people that will cook and smoke. So he was like, I want to get us a house in the middle of nowhere. I was like, okay, that's fine, we can do that. And so he was like, just start looking, and we ended up finding a beautiful home, and we were just getting ready to fix it and move in there. I want to say it just by the time I was getting ready to give birth to Brooklyn, everything just started changing. I woke up one night at like 5 a.m. and my bed was full of blood. And I remember calling my husband. I said, "Babe, I'm bleeding." And he came and he was like getting ready for work. He started panicking. He said, "You bleeding?" And at this time, I'm 6 months pregnant. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm bleeding all over the bed, and I don't know why." So he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna call the ambulance." Ended up getting transferred to the hospital. They said I had placenta previa. So that was the first thing in 2023 that I had to deal with. And we thought that we were losing the baby because we never experienced that before.
Hmm.
So he was like, man, this year just is already starting off too much for us, man. I said, no, baby. I was like, don't think like that. Just, I said, everything gonna be okay. He was the type of man that like he needed me to do things with him. Like he could not do it on his own. If the other kids were at home, he would be on FaceTime with me. If I was somewhere, like if I was at work, he would be on FaceTime. He would call me. He has to have me telling him how to do stuff because it's just he did not know. Like he would, I will give him credit and say that he tried, but it's like his nervous system, he couldn't handle it like I could. So it's
Mhm.
like he would be like panicking, like, okay, what am I supposed to do next? What am I supposed to do? So, well, I was in the hospital for 3 days, getting checked to make sure that the baby was okay. He was like, okay. He said, this is why I want to make sure everything is in order, because like you never know what can happen. I said, yeah, let's not talk like that though. I always tried to tell him, look at the glass half full, not half empty. So let's not talk like that, Aaron. So I ended up getting discharged, coming home. They scheduled me for an emergency C-section June 30th. So June 30th is a week before my birthday and his birthday. His birthday is July 3rd and mine is July 5th. So he was like, man, I really wanted to do something with you for our 30th birthdays, just this one last time. And when he said that, I looked at him. I was like, what do you mean this one last time?
Right.
He was like, he's like, I just want to go all out. I want to have an all white party. I want to take you out fancy. I want to do everything. I said, baby, why you keep talking like that? And so he was like, no, he's like, I just want to do it. So obviously we didn't get to do it. Brooklyn came and Aaron was like, I had to have a C-section. And so I've posted pictures online about him being in the C-section room, and he was like really protective over me because I've never had one before. So he
Mhm.
was like asking me, he was like, are you okay, Didi? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. Everything's fine. And I had the shakes and stuff after. And then he was like, okay, I'm so happy I got to see this because we're not having any more kids. That's what he told me. I was like, yeah, I understand. He was like, I don't want to. I want to live life now. I said, I understand. So um, we got home, and when I say it just seemed like it just felt too good to be true. And I even still say that now. I told my therapist, and it makes me emotional because it's just like, I don't know. It's like I felt like he knew he was getting ready to go, but it was like maybe I just was too blinded by like everything that I had going on. So
Mhm.
like I didn't really pay attention to the signs that he was giving me. But I would come home and from like just dropping the kids off, and he'd be in the bathroom just in the dark in the shower by himself, like, and I'm like, Aaron, why are you doing that? And he was like, I just had a long day at work. Or like he would start telling me stuff like, it's a lot being a father and a provider and a black man. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, you got to tell me what's wrong. And he was like, it's just a lot. You don't understand. And so I, up until the weeks that, he ended up passing away, I always go back and I'd be like, damn, was he telling me without telling me that like he couldn't handle this no more? Like, was it just becoming to be too much? So the day that everything happened, it was Friday. He went over to his mom's house because his auntie was in town. And mind you, we're all from Chicago. So she came down. She was like, I want to see Aaron. I haven't seen Aaron in 4 years. Aaron was her baby. So she was like, I haven't seen Aaron in 4 years. So let me go ahead and come down and see the family and stuff. Y'all just had a baby. So let me go ahead and come down and see him. And I remember Aaron calling me. Aaron was like, okay. He was like, I'm going to go over my mom's house. He was like, I'll go over to my mom's house and I want to take the kids with me. So when you pick them up from daycare, just bring them home. I said, okay, yeah, I can do that. So he didn't end up taking Brooklyn because Brooklyn was strictly breastfed at the time. She was only a couple weeks old. So
Mhm.
like 8 weeks at the time when he passed. So she was with me. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I dropped the kids off at home. He made them dinner. They left. And in the picture, I posted it on my social media. The picture that he took with all of his kids lined up, that was the last picture that he took with his kids. Like you can tell in the picture he didn't look like himself. He looked disoriented, and he just like you could tell something was bothering him, but he just didn't know how to tell anybody. So when he came home that night, I have and I still have the camera clips of the ring and all that. I saved all of that. That night when he came back from his mom's house, I had caught him on the camera, like he kept waking up coughing.
Mhm.
And I was like, Aaron, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, it's just my asthma acting up. And I said, are you sure? And he was like, yeah. So he went into the pantry and he took like one of the sinus things because he thought it was like his allergies and sinus all together.
Mhm.
So um, he ended up taking one of the medicines and he went back to sleep. And so the very next day he got up because he was a youth football coach. So he was a youth football coach for 3 years, and he got the boys, our sons, Aiden and Akeem, up for their football game. Now that day when I woke up, I didn't even visually see him. It was like a glimpse, because usually he wakes me up to say, "Hey, baby, I'm getting ready to go to the game," and didn't, like, he tells me everything. And I just remember waking up because I was so drained from breastfeeding. Because when you breastfeed, it just takes so much energy from you. I just remember doing that, and I just went back to sleep, and I just saw like a glimpse of him going out of the room. And so um, that whole day, he just kept calling me, and I was like, "What's up? What's up?" And he was like, "I just want to hear your voice." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm in the middle of the kids. All of us didn't go. He took just the
Mhm.
two boys, so I still have the other kids." And I was like, "Aaron, I'm in the middle of getting ready for the day." I was like, he could tell I sounded a little irritated. And he was like, "What's wrong? Did I do something?" I said, "No, you didn't do nothing. The baby's crying. The kids are not listening." I was like, "The dog barking." I was like, "So I'm going to have to call you back when I find my AirPod." And he was like, "Okay, baby, just call me back because I just want to hear your voice and talk." I was like, "Okay." And so I got off the phone, and I remember looking at my stove in my house, and they said 11:11. I was like, "Why do for the whole week I had been catching that time?" And I'm very spiritual more than religious. I was like, "Why do I keep on seeing that time everywhere I go?" And I have it on my Ring camera, and the kids were saying the same thing. They said, "Yeah, Mom, you said you keep seeing that number." I said, "Why do I keep seeing that?" So I was buckling the baby up in the car seat because we were fixing to go to Aldi's to get some groceries and stuff and just get some fresh air. And so by the time I came from Taco Bell, because I stopped at Taco Bell and got me some sneak food, because he hated when I did that, because he was like, "Just eat at home, stop eating out." So it was so funny because I remember eating, and then he called me. He was like, "Did you stop and get some food?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You just don't know how to not spend money." He said, "We got all that food at home and you spending money." And so I was like, "Yeah." I thought he wanted to get off the phone with me, but he was like, "Hey, baby, I got something to tell you." I said, "Yeah, what's up?" He was like, "We won the game." I was like, "Y'all did?" He said, "Yeah." I was like, "That's good." I was like, "Good job." And he was like, I made everybody mad, because he was a very Aaron personality was very distinct. Like, either you liked him or you hated him. Like, it wasn't no, I kind of like him, I kind of not. It's because, like, he would say what everybody else was afraid to say. So he would be that elephant in the room, just bringing everybody out. Like, you fake, you fake. I don't care. Like, that's just how he is. And so
Mhm.
when he coached, his personality came out even more. And so he was like, people was trying to fight me. The cops came. He said the cops came. I said, "Damn, what you do?" He was like, he said, "I'm just a real ass man. Like, they don't like that." He was like, "They don't like that." I was like, "Yeah." And we just was laughing. So I was like, "I'm on my way home, baby. I'll see you when I get there." And he was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll see you when I get there too." He was like, "You want to stay on the phone?" I said, "Aaron," I said, "What's going on? You ain't never asked me to sit on the phone this much with you." And he was like, "I don't know." He was like, "I just want to talk to you. That's all." And I was like, "Okay." So as I was driving back, I just had my AirPod in, and he was just talking to me, and you could just tell, like, he was just saying stuff that was coming to his mind. We got back home, and he started doing this immediately with his hands on his head. And I told him about that because I used to work at UT Southwestern. I told him that when he started having moments with breathing. So he was doing it, and I saw him sweating profusely on his body. Like, he even took his shirt off. I said, "Aaron, what's wrong?" And he was like, "Man, my asthma." He's like, "It's just not letting up." I said, "Okay, are you okay? Like, do you need me to do anything?" He was like, "No." So he started pacing around the house, and it's even on the Ring camera. Like, I took clips of it and I saved it because I was trying to play like investigator after everything happened. Like, was it something I didn't see? Like, so I just started
Mhm.
saving all the clips. And you seen him? He came over by the baby, our daughter Brooklyn, and he was just looking at her and like playing with her and stuff. And then he went into the back room. He went into our bathroom in our room, and he was in there for a while. So he came back out, and he was like, "Man, baby, I'm not gonna lie to you." He was like, "I'm trying the best I can, but I don't know." He was like, "I think I might have to go to the hospital." I said, "Okay." I said, "You need me to take you to the hospital? Let's go." And he was like, "Yeah, let's go." So I gather all the kids up because, I'm trying to gather everybody up. I'm like, "Y'all, come on. I'm finna take daddy to the hospital." And they were like, "Okay, okay." So I went to go buckle Brooklyn in. And by the time I buckled Brooklyn in, he said, "I'm not going to make it." And I said, "Aaron, what do you mean you're not going to make it?" And he was like, "Call an ambulance." and he was standing by the door with his hand on the door. And I said, "What do you mean you're not gonna make it, Aaron? What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Just call an ambulance." So I picked up my phone and I called as fast as I could. And mind you, we live in the middle of nowhere almost. So I'm like, hello, hello. I'm like, hey, I think my husband having a asthma attack or a heart attack. I said, well, how somebody need to come out here real fast. And the lady on the phone, she just was asking. I felt like she was asking me all these dumbass questions, and she was like, she's like, is he standing up? I said, yeah, he's standing up. I said, she said, have him sit down. I said, okay. I said, babe, come here. It was a rolly chair that he used to play games in because he was a big gamer too. I said, babe, I grabbed him. I said, babe, sit down. Stop moving. I said, you putting too much, you making your heart move faster by doing all that. Because he just started pacing around and he was getting like delusional. And so I told him to sit down. I was like, sit down and don't move. They said you cannot move. And he was like, okay, baby, okay. He just kept saying, okay, baby, okay. He was like, baby, help me, please, please, please. And I say, Aaron, I'm trying. So the call was like 9 minutes. I'm like, why the fuck is it taking 9 minutes for somebody to get out here? So she said, okay, he started walking where his game was in the other area because we like the way our house was the front door it was like an open entry on this side and an open entry on this side, so like he had his own game room, like his little man cave, and he was on this side. And so he walked over there, and that's when he just hit the floor. He went to go sit in the chair and then he just hit the floor. So all of us started screaming. All of us started screaming. It was the scariest shit in my life. He just the last thing he said was baby, please. And I said, ma'am, I said, my husband just hit the floor. He just hit the floor. She said, what do you mean? I said, his eyes are closed. He just hit the floor. So all of the kids in there screaming, my dog outside barking, the newborn baby crying. Like it was crazy. So I ended up having to sit on the phone, and I told Bailey. Bailey was a daddy's girl. I said, she was 7 at the time. I said, Bailey, please go outside this front door, run out and scream as loud as you can. I said, I don't care who hears you, scream as loud as you can. And we lived in an HOA area, so people were not really nosy. Like it wasn't like how I grew up where somebody was always sitting out.
Mm-hmm.
She was screaming. She said, help, 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 my dad. And so just so happened our neighbors to the left of us came out, and she said, what's going on? I felt like I was finna faint. I said, my husband, he's on the floor. I said, he's not waking up. And she said, is he diabetic? I said, no, he has asthma. So she told one of her kids to go back and get like a pen, an EpiPen, because she thought maybe that was gonna help. And mind you, I'm still on the phone with dispatch. Why is it taking so long for someone to get there? I'm study asking the lady. I said, ma'am, why is it taking you so long to get here? And she said, ma'am, you cannot yell at me. We have someone coming. I said, where are they? Nobody has came yet. I said, my husband is laying here on the floor. We poured water on him. I said, where are y'all? So we ended up having to wait. My neighbor that came and brought the EpiPen, she called the police. But the police that came wasn't the police for our city. It was the nearby city that came. So they only came because she called. And so the police officer came and he was like doing chest compressions, and he was like on his radio saying whatever. It just everything started becoming a blur because I couldn't believe it. Like it just happened so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, he was just standing here talking to me, and like I'm just like walking back and forth, and then that's when the house just turned into like a movie scene. And the firefighters came and they were like, Miss Wiley, they said, can we go over here and talk? I said, no, I know I want to talk right here in front of my husband. I said, what's going on? And they said, as of right now, he has been declared dead. I said, dead? I said, y'all playing some sick joke on me. I said, this man is not dead. I said, he was just standing here talking to me, telling me that his chest was bothering him. Come here. And I said, how's he dead? They said, we're not getting a response. His heart's still beating, but we're not getting like a pulse right now. It's fading in and out. And so I told them, I say it's fading in and out, and they said, yeah. So they use this big machine to try to like resuscitate him. They brought that in the house, and I just saw my baby chest go up like a couple times. I can't think of the name of the machine, and they was like, no, it's not working. So we're gonna have to take him to Plano Medical City, and they said, right now, Mrs. Wiley, we need you to calm down. We don't need anything happening to you. The kid, it was just like everybody was screaming. My neighbor was panicking. She said, calm down. I'm right here. I'm right here. So I said, where are y'all taking him again? They said to the hospital that's one of the best in DFW for asthmatics. We have to take him there because they have a varicella machine and they can do an open heart surgery and they can possibly try to figure out what happened and what's going on. So I watched my baby get on the stretcher, and I'm seeing them take him into the ambulance, and I'm like literally crying and watching this ambulance go down the street. So I tried to call his mom, and at the time, me and his mom, none of us were talking because like we just weren't like if he got into it with his mom about something, he wouldn't want me talking to her. And I'm like, so when I was calling her, my call wasn't going through. So I asked my neighbor Samantha, can I use your phone? She said, yeah. I said, call her and let her know that her son, they're saying that my husband is dead and it's not making sense right now. And she said, okay. And it's like, I didn't even realize, now that I look back, I didn't even realize what was coming out of my mouth because it sounded like a blur, like dead. Like it just, I was like, what are you talking about? So she said, okay, do you have somebody to watch the kids? Because I need to get you to the hospital to be with your husband. I said, yeah, let me call Bella. Bella, my oldest, she has a different father. So I called her father and I said, hey, they saying Aaron just passed away and they taking him to the hospital. He was on the phone like, what? I said, yeah. He was like, I'm on my way over there. So he came over to be with the kids and I went to the hospital. The whole hospital ride, I'm on the expressway on George Bush. I'm just like shaking. I'm talking to myself. I'm going in and out. I said, he was just talking to me. I said, he was just standing here talking to me, telling me that he needed to go to the hospital. And now I said, what just happened? And my neighbor was like, calm down. You in a state of shock right now. I need you to calm down. So we get to the hospital. I never forget the doctor name, Dr. Couch. Um, he was like, Miss Wiley, he said, come here. We went to the surgery side. He said, he's, he said, we're doing everything we can right now. We do have him in the operating room. He said, I just want you to remain calm. I know you just had a baby and everything, and I just remain calm. I said, okay, what's wrong? And he said, right now your husband is very sick. It's not asthma. He's very sick. Like he's one of the sickest people in the DFW area. I've never seen somebody this sick. When I opened him up, he said it's just not looking good. I said, what's wrong with my baby? Like what's wrong? And he said, we're doing everything we can right now. We did put something in his heart for his heart to, because his heart is still pumping fast. But he said his pulse is fading in and out. So we're gonna put him in a coma. So this is Saturday. I said, okay. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit out here. I'm okay, mommy's okay. I said, I'm gonna sit out here, and ended up sitting out there, and it felt like hours, girl. I don't know. It just felt like it was like I could hear everything he was like telling me from the time we were together those 12 years. It's like everything just came playing back in my mind. And I was just like, I was praying to God. I was like, God, please don't let him leave me with all these kids but myself. I say, I said, even if he come out in a wheelchair and he need an oxygen tank, I'll be with him still. Like, cause that's how loyal my dad. That's how deep my love was for him. I said, I don't care. Like, I will deal with him.
Yeah.
So my aunt-in-law came and she was like, Didi, you gonna make yourself sick. You gotta go home. You gotta breastfeed the baby. The kids crying. They want to know where you are. She said, go home and get some rest. I said, okay. Um, so I went home, and girl, when I went in the bathroom, the light flickered. And I said, this light ain't never flickered like this. I remember looking up. I said, why did the light flicker? And so I ended up getting into bed, and the charge nurse, Chassie, that was her name. She had wrote everything down on a post-it notepad, and I kept it. She said, Mrs. Wiley will call you if we need anything from you. We'll take good care of your husband. I said, okay. And so I had everything on my side of my bed. I had put the kids to sleep, and I'm like, let me just try to go get some sleep. So I end up dozing off. It was so hard. And I didn't even have a dream that night. I didn't have no dream. I woke up the next day. I said, okay, I got to go see Aaron. I got to go figure out what's going on with Aaron. So his mom ended up making it back. She was coming from a turkey leg hunt in Houston. So she flew back to come. And she was like, okay, I'm going to go up to the hospital first, and then I'm going to come over to the house to get the kids so you can go. So she said she went up there, and they had put him in an induced coma. So my baby had all these things hooked up to his face. His nostrils was like super big.
Join the movement. Create your free listing on www.connector.com. In light of the current climate in America, it's more important than ever for communities to come together. Are you a business owner looking to make a positive impact in your community? Now is the perfect time to take action. By creating a free listing on Connector.com, you can help build a new digital beloved community where everyone thrives. Your business can be a vital resource for residents, offering essential services and fostering connections. By joining our platform, you not only gain visibility, but also contribute to a network that embodies inclusivity, support, and empowerment. Don't wait. Create your free listing on Connector.com, download the app, and help us shape a beloved community for all.
And you could tell like he wasn't with us no more, because like he didn't look like himself. Like his soul just left his body. So when I got up there, I just remember my cycle just started coming really hard. I was like, oh my God, this is the wrong time for this. I didn't even care. I said, I'm not going back home. I want to be up here with him. I want to make sure that they not giving him stuff that they don't need to. I'm his advocate. Like I always, every appointment we would go to, even when he got hospitalized, I would always tell them what he was either allergic to or what he could not have. I'm like, I'm his voice. So don't give him anything without me knowing what it is and what can it do to help him get out of this bed. So I'm sitting there, and the lady came in. She said, do you need some feminine products? I said, yes, ma'am, because it's all over the chair. And she said, okay. So I went to go get changed. I come back in the room. I started grabbing Aaron's hand, his left hand. I was like, Aaron, if you can hear me, baby, it's me, it's Dee Dee. I said, I love you, and I want you to pull through. I said, you got so much to live for. I said, I'm not mad at you about anything. If you think I'm upset about anything, I'm not. I want you to come home with us. I started naming everything. I said, we just got this house. We just had a baby. Ace, our German Shepherd. I said, Ace is going to miss you. Ace loves you. Like, we love you. I started telling him all this stuff because I was looking at the machines. The nurse came in and was like, right now he's just in this induced coma. Dr. Couch wants to see if we can get him out of it in a couple of hours. And I said, okay, that'll be good. So she said, right now he's not responding to anything. So we're going to leave him in the induced coma. So a couple hours went past, and Dr. Couch came in, and he was like, okay, Mrs. Wiley, he's like, I want you to prepare yourself for either or. I said, okay. And I got excited because I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, okay, my husband's finna come out there. It's like he always do. I'm like, yes, he's gonna pull through. He heard me. And he was like, Aaron, he stopped the machine. He said, Aaron. He was calling my husband's name, and he wasn't responding. And my heart just dropped. And then he called him again. He said, Aaron, can you hear me? This is Dr. Couch. And he didn't make no movements, no responding. His hands didn't move, nothing. And he was like, why don't you try? I said, Aaron, it's me, baby. It's your wife. I said, it's Dee Dee. I said, can you come out? Can you hear me? I said, move your hands if you can hear me. And he did not move, nothing. So Dr. Couch looked at me, and he looked at the other nurse that was in the room, and them two left. And so then I was talking to Aaron. I said, Aaron, what does that mean? I said, why are you being so stubborn? This is not the time to be stubborn, baby. You always so stubborn. And so I was like, I need you to come home. I said, we didn't come to Texas for me to be by myself. And so Dr. Couch ended up calling me out and to a separate room with his aunt. At this time, the aunt-in-law was there. And she was just walking with me down the hall. And I was like holding my hands like this. Like I was like praying while I was walking to the room. And he pulled me into the room and he was like, Mrs. Wiley, I don't know how to say this, but we did everything we could. I said, no, 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 no. Right before he could, I said, no, 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 no. You're not about to sit here and tell, no. He was like, your husband passed away. I said, passed away? I was like, is this some sick joke? Because why would he pass away? And he was like, we did the open heart surgery. We put the varicella machine in his heart. But yeah, he didn't respond to any of that. I said, what do you mean he didn't respond? I said, Aaron always responds. I said, he's been hospitalized 4 times. I said, my husband know how to pull through. He's done it every other time. And they said, well, Mrs. Wiley, we want you to know we did everything we could, but your husband was very sick. Like there was something else going on that he must didn't tell you or you didn't know anything about. I said, like what? And he did not tell me if it was like pneumonia, if it was RS. I don't know. I still to this day I don't know. And so I just remember screaming as loud as I could. And I said I was going to sue all of them. I said, I'm suing every last one of y'all. I said, y'all killed my husband. My husband was fine. I said, all he had was asthma. There's no way a man that comes in here that had an asthma attack is deceased. I said, he just turned 30. I said, there's no way. I said, I'm going to figure all of this out. I'm suing everybody. So um his aunt, I remember her giving me a hug because I was like pounding on the concrete floor, and she was like, Didi, you gonna your knuckles, you gonna break your hands. I was so mad, I was screaming, pulling my hair out. She said, you gotta get up, baby, you gotta get up. So I'm trying to get up. I was in and out. I said, Aaron, you left me. I said, you lied to me, because he always told me he was never gonna leave me. I said, you fucking lied to me. Why would you do that? I said, you just gave me a baby and you sit up here and you leave me with the baby by myself. You know, I had a C-section. Like everything just started coming out. I said, that was so selfish of you. So the doctor and the nurse that he came in with, they left. And me and his aunt was just in there. And she was like, Didi, do you have anybody you want to call? Let them know, because you need a lot of support right now. She said, I gotta get my head wrapped around this. My nephew gone. Like, I just got down here. Like, she's like, I need to figure out it. So I was like, call my mom. And I hadn't spoke to my mom in over 4 years because she did not approve of my relationship with Aaron from the time that we got together. So
Mm-hmm.
she was like, I just want better for you. That's what she would say. And so I ended up calling her. She said she was gonna call me back. She never did that day. My brother called. I called my no, I didn't. My brother Dominique. We called him, and he was like, "Oh my God, Didi, I'm sorry." So he paused and he tried to three-way call my mom, and my mom was like, "I had already spoken to her, and she said I'm in a state of shock right now." So everything after that was they were like it was like a money grab. They was like, okay, we're gonna keep him on the machine, but they pulled me into a room. Southwestern Imaging came in. That's people that buy organs and stuff like this, and they was like, hey, Miss Wiley, we know you're going through a lot right now, but do you want to donate it? I said, my husband ain't been gone a couple of hours, and y'all already asking me all this stuff. I said my husband was not an organ donor, but I still sat there and just listening to them talk, because it's just like everything was a blur for me. And I'm like, why do y'all want his eyes? I said, if he was sick, what are y'all gonna do with these things? They said we're gonna give it to people that can benefit from it. We were sitting there and they were like trying to like get all of his whatever they could from me. And I'm 30. You know, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I ain't never lost a spouse before. I'm sitting up here like, okay, okay, like saying yes to everything. Okay, okay, like dumb. And then they were like, well, we're going to give you another day to go ahead and for the family to come up here and say their goodbyes. And we know you guys have a lot of children, so we're going to go ahead and let the kids come up here and say their goodbyes too. Now, when I tell you that's the most hardest thing to do is to bring little kids to a hospital for them to see their deceased parent in a hospital bed. It was yes, that was too much. It was just too much for them. I had a 1 year old at the time, a newborn, and all of my kids were younger, so they mentally were not even prepared to see what they saw that day. So I told them the whole drive. I said, hey y'all, I said we about to go say goodbye to daddy. And they said, go say goodbye to daddy, because they all thought he was coming home. I said, yeah. I said, we're about to go say goodbye to daddy. And they said, where's daddy? I said, daddy is in the sky now. And they said, my oldest son, Aaron Jr., he was 8 at the time. He was like, in the sky? I said, yeah. He said, but he was just here with us. I said, yeah, I know, honey. I just started crying. I said, I don't even know what I'm saying. I wasn't driving. His aunt was driving. Thank God, because I was a passenger
Mhm.
this whole process. And we got to the hospital. Medical City was. I want to say they were really nice to us though. They gave us a whole open space, and we had a social worker come out. And the kids, they were like, "What? Where's Daddy?" Like my daughter Bailey, she's a daddy's girl. She was like, "Where's Daddy? I want to hug Daddy and play with Daddy." And they weren't grasping what was about to happen. So the social worker came out. She was like, "Hey, Miss Wiley, I'll go ahead and talk to the kids and let them know what they're about to walk into, if that's okay with you." I said, "Yeah, that's fine." And she told them she had a book, and it was about grief. And she was like, "This is what happens when a parent passes away." And she started reading it to them, and they still wasn't understanding. Okay, give me the phone. They still wasn't understanding what was going on. So we ended up. I said, okay, I'm just pushing the big, because I had a double stroller. I had put Brazil in the front, and Brookie was in the back. And so I was just pushing the big double stroller down the hall. Aaron's brothers were there. Everybody was there. So we getting ready to go in the room, and his room was 312. That's crazy. I still remember it. We walk in there, and I said, y'all, I said, you have to be very quiet. And they said, why? I said, because I said, it's very loud for daddy. I said, you gotta be very quiet, okay? And they said, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. And so everybody came in the room, and he was just laying there lifeless. Um, and my son Aaron, I remember him, he ran up to him. He was like, Daddy, it's me, Aaron Jr. And I said, Aaron, I said, son, I said, son, he's not gonna respond to you. And he said, why? I said, because daddy is in heaven now with God, and my brother, because I lost my brother in 2020 and my dad in 2013. So I said he's up there with mommy's daddy and mommy's brother, and I said he's up there now. He's looking down on us, and I just remember seeing his face just break down.
Mhm.
He picked up his dad's hand, and he was like, Daddy, you forgot about me? And I said, Aaron, I said, he didn't forget about you, honey. I said, he fought as hard as he could. So the social worker was like, she was helping each and every one of them. She said, I want each and every one of you to tell your dad a special message before, so he can get it. She said he'll get it all the way in heaven. So they all were like kissing him and stuff. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Um, I even showed Brooklyn. I said, Brooklyn, I know you're too young right now. I said, but this is your father. I said, when you get older, I'm going to make sure you know who he was and who he meant to everybody. And she didn't know, but I took his hand and I just like rubbed it against her head. I said, that's daddy touching you. And so she said, Miss Wiley, we're going to take the kids out. We're going to let you say your goodbyes, and we'll come back. I said, okay, yes, ma'am. So she took everybody. She's like, let's go get snacks. And they was like, yay, we're going to go get snacks. Daddy will be back. They kept saying, they just thought that he was going to come home with us. And so they were like, Miss Wiley, when do you want to pull him off? This was Sunday at this point. They said, when do you want to pull him off the machines? Um, I said, I really don't know, because I said everything is a blur right now. I said, it's so much y'all asking for me. I say, I just was in a room. They was asking me for my husband's eyeballs and his ears. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I had called Aaron's mom, and I was like, hey, do you want to come up here to the hospital and say goodbye to your son? Because they're saying that they have to pull the cords, because obviously he's brain dead at this point. Like, it's no only thing was beating was his heart. Like, you can see it was beating real fast. And they was like, he wasn't responding to anything that they were doing. And she was like, you could tell she wasn't really comprehending either. She was, I just, my heart still feels for her. because the very next day after she found out that her son passed, her boyfriend passed away from a stroke. So
Mm.
it's like she was in a hospital, and I was in a hospital in Plano. She's in a hospital in Fort Worth with with her boyfriend because he had a stroke. Once he found out the news about my husband, it's just October. It was a really 2023 in October was just a really weird ass year for both of us. And she was like, Dee Dee, you could just tell she just was sick. She was like, Dee Dee, I don't even know. I'm over here with Clyde. She say Clyde just had a stroke in the truck when I told him the news with Aaron because you got all the kids and he panicking and he don't want you to be down here by yourself with the kids. And so I was like, okay. I said, okay. Um, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do what I can. So the doctor came in and he was like, well, I'll give you until the 16th. And he was like, but on the death, hold on. He was like, on the death certificate, it will say the 15th because that's when we declared him brain dead. I said, okay, that's fine. So I went over there and I was just looking at Aaron and I knew he was dead, deceased already.
Mhm.
And his breath started changing. And my baby was always big on brushing his teeth because I used to tell him, I was like, you got some pretty teeth. Because all his teeth was in his mouth. I said, I done had all your kids and they didn't have to pull my teeth out of my mouth. And you over there with pretty teeth. It's like I didn't even comprehend what was happening because he always came home. Like every time he always would pull through. So, um, it was like, it was a smell that I would never forget. It was a death smell and you could just tell his body was just letting off fumes. And I asked the nurse, I said, ma'am, I said, can y'all brush my baby teeth? And she said, everybody was just letting me have whatever it was. They all knew he was deceased. She said, yeah, we can brush his teeth for you. I said, my husband never liked his breath to stink. And it was like foam coming down his mouth. And I said, can y'all wipe his face? I said, y'all just got him laying here like this. And she
Mhm.
was like, yes, ma'am, we can wipe his face for you. So I was talking to Aaron and I told him, I said, Aaron, I said, you know, you really hurt me. And I said, you had no business. I said, you had no business doing that. I said, you told me and you were going to grow old together. You was going to be the grumpy old man on the porch and I was going to be the grumpy old wife with you. I said, why you do this to me? And I said, you know what? I'm not going to question it. I said, you were tired. I said, you've been telling me this whole year in so many ways you were tired. You was going to work every day, slaving, and you felt like the whole world just let you down. I say, but you did a good job. You did what you were supposed to do. I say, I'll take it from here. I say, I'll raise the kids. I'll make sure that they get the best education and everything. I said, I don't care how much I struggle, but I'm going to make it happen for us. And so I was there when they pulled the cord, of course. It was 11 o'clock. Hold on, Brazil. Um, all his brothers were there. And they said, oh, um, his brothers were there. No, not in the camera. And they were like, okay, Miss Hall, no, Miss Wiley. They said, no, you can't be in the camera. They said, are you ready? I said, I don't really have a choice at this point. And so I remember feeling like I was finna throw up because I was just looking at the board and I kept seeing his name on there. And I was just, it's like everything, I still was in this state of shock. I was just like, how can asthma do all of this? I kept saying that. I said, are y'all sure it's not something else? Did y'all give him something that y'all wasn't supposed to give him while I wasn't here? I said, because my husband only had asthma. He didn't have anything else. And they were like, Miss Wiley, we did everything we could. We assure you. I said, no, I'm suing everybody. And his brothers was just looking at me and everybody was just in there crying. They said, okay, well, we're going to pull him off the cords. We're going to unplug it. And either you can stand by him or you can stand and watch. So I stood by him because it said until death do us part. So, of course, I'm going to stand by him.
Mhm.
I stood by him and the same arm that I grabbed when everything first happened was the last piece that moved, and he moved it by his heart like this. Mama, the corner. That's Daddy. And it just broke me down.
Mhm.
It was like he was letting me know that he felt me touch his arm that day. And oh no, it's a pain. Like this shit is a pain.
Yeah.
It's
I want
something like that.
I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. Like, I know. You need a moment or
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
It's just to stop it. To create a life with someone. And they die in front of you. It's like you just be like, girl, when I tell you I used to have last year 2024, I had so many panic attacks. I thought I was dying. I would be in the car driving with my kids and my heart would just start beating out of my chest.
Mhm.
And I remember I had the first one I had to pull over. And I called the police. I said, yeah, I think I'm having a heart attack. And they said, okay, we're on our way. And when they got there, they said, no, you're not having a heart attack. Your heart's fine. You have an anxiety attack. They said anything traumatic or anything like that, stop. Anything like that happened recently? I said, yeah, last year in 23, my husband died in front of me. They said, you probably have PTSD. And I
Mhm.
was like, what the fuck is PTSD? So I ended up getting a therapist, a psychiatrist, and it's like I had to just do everything all over. Like I had to reprogram my brain. I was so angry. I was angry at everybody. Like I was like, everybody let me down. I remember saying that a lot last year. I was like, y'all let me down. I say, Aaron would have never done that. I said that was the devil. Just to see my husband in that bed, I got the pictures of my phone and everything. I can't even look at him no more, cause I'm like, it just takes me back to that day
Mhm.
when they told me that he was no longer with us. Stop. So I don't know, girl.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Like, it was so many things that you said that like I resonated with. Just with me, even when you were just talking about how, with those days leading up, it was like, you were wondering like, what could I have done? Could I have said something? Or, it was like he was preparing you.
Yeah.
And I remember that even in my journey, like when Chris when it was towards the end and he had gotten this new job and everything, and things were like you said, they were looking like it was too good to be true, like everything was just going so smooth.
Yes.
And I remember because he had just started this new career. And I
Yes.
kept telling myself, this is what I kept telling myself over and over again, because he would be gone trying to work and stuff with this new career, but he was happy. And I kept saying, him, you know what? You gonna act like you're a single parent. Don't say anything. Cause I was so used to him being so involved with the boys and doing everything. And now it was like he was just working and everything. And I was kind of like, you know what? Don't say anything. You gotta act like a single parent. You gotta do this on your own. And in my mind, I'm like, dang, was I preparing myself for what was to happen? Because I was about to be a single parent, crazy. And it's things like that. Like we don't even think about stuff like that until like afterwards. But it's just like, we kind of think and seeing it. We were and I kind of feel like we were like God was kind of preparing us, like, and we had no idea. And and even with the kids, at the hospital, when Chris died, he it was during COVID.
I'm so sorry
So
for your loss.
and he died from an electric scooter accident. So it was like trauma too, right? For me. And
Yes.
so my youngest one wasn't even able to go into the hospital.
Oh.
And they didn't let the oldest one go in there until they had already declared him brain dead. And he didn't know what to say. To him, I didn't know what to say to him either. And like we don't think about that. Like, what are we gonna say to our kids to explain to them, especially when they're young? My youngest one was 4, and my oldest one was 12. And I was thankful that he was 12 because he had some understanding.
Yeah.
So, but at 4 years old, like, how do I tell you that your dad is gone? Like, what do I say? You don't understand really what death really is. So it breaks my heart. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through this, especially at such a young age. I was 39. So you being 30, like, that's just crazy. How has life for you been now? Like, I know that you were saying that um you did get therapy and you were talking to people and um how have you been putting your life together? Because I want to say that I went through your page and I saw that you were still trying to be a nurse, and I definitely want to commend you for all of that. Like, you are so strong on your page, so I definitely want to know, like, how are you moving forward?
So, I'll be transparent with you. When I first hit rock bottom, because that's what I would call it, rock bottom. I literally was like, I promised him that I was going to finish school because he was my biggest advocate. He was paying for my classes, he was paying for all the materials I needed. He said, I want you to go to school. I want you to do this. You can do this, baby. Like, never give up. I always heard his voice in my head. Even after he passed, I was like, I can hear him telling me never give up. So I just got to a point, you got to get down. I got to a point where I was like, I want to do this for myself and for my family. I
Mhm.
want to turn this tragedy into something that can help other people. And I want to talk about this and I want to get this out when I'm in the right mental space. I ended up, and I'm going to be honest with you, I was in a psych ward twice last year because it just got to a point where I was like, I still could not understand what happened. I said, there is no way that that happened in front of me like that. And y'all, everybody just kept expecting so much from me. And it was just like I would put on this mask that I was okay. And in the back of my mind, I wasn't okay
Mhm.
because it was just like a piece of me that I created life with, the beginning of life, is no longer here. And not only did I am I going through postpartum depression after having a baby, my first C-section, and then now I'm having to cremate my husband because I chose to have him cremated. Now I'm having to cremate my husband, and I got people asking for ashes and his materialistic things and his business that he had. It's just everything just turned into a cash grab.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, that kind of sent me. Most people say it was psychosis because they're like, oh, you just couldn't handle everything. But I don't claim that spirit. I just claim it was a broken heart. I think that's what it was. And us women, when something, if it was a man on the other foot, maybe they would have handled it differently. But women, when you love hard. It's of course I did. So it took a lot for me to get to where I am now. I went through four different therapists. I'm not going to say that journey was easy. I had therapists that I was just paying to just listen. They were just listening to me vent. They were not doing any EDR therapy with me. They were not talking about any trauma based ways to get past the trauma. It was just a bunch of yes, yep, that's normal, that's normal. And I am a psychology major, as most of you know, or if you don't know. So I go a lot off of what's in here. Like, you can't tell me, girls, you can't tell me everything's okay when I just experienced my husband pass out on the floor and die. So
Right.
it's like, tell me something that is going to help me get past seeing a dead body, smelling the smell of death. That was horrid. I never want to smell that again.
Mhm.
So I ended up finally finding a therapist who's phenomenal, and she's been with me on this journey. And I just had a session yesterday, and she was just like, "You are a phenomenal queen. Like, everything you've been through, she said you need to tell your story. You're
Mhm.
gonna help a lot of widows and even just a lot of single moms out there. Tell that story." And she said, "What's holding you back?" I said, "Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what's holding me back." And she said, "It's okay. Talk about it because you never know who you're healing and helping in the midst of their journey." So now I want to tell you, Kim, I am expecting my ninth child any day now. I was able to finally get back out there, and I met a good person. But it's just, I have been in this space where I'm like, I still bring up my late husband. So,
Mhm.
and he understands, and
Mhm.
God bless his heart, because it's a lot. But I told him, I say, no matter what, my husband was a part of my journey for
Right.
19 years. Like, I can't just turn that cord off. I can't. So he's like, okay. I am expecting a baby boy any day now.
Mhm.
And I'm excited about that, and just excited about new life. I feel like that he was heaven sent, my son, because I lost three important people in my life: my daddy in 2013, my baby brother in 2020, and then my husband in 2023. So
Mhm.
to get a boy after 6 years, because I have been having girls back to back. So I finally get a boy again after begging my husband one last time for a boy before he left. It was like, okay, he heard me. He sent me a little boy now from heaven. So it's just I hope that if anything that y'all learn from this vlog, this podcast today, is to remain strong. Just
Mhm.
never forget to ask for help. Ask for help. You know, utilize your resources. I've went to pantries. I've asked school counselors what type of resources do y'all have for Christmas, because I don't want to be strong to the point I don't ask for help when there's help out there. I was going to grief groups, just talking about my journey, and it helped me through. It helped me through the hard times. And I will say too that just being able to show the kids that it's okay to cry. I had so many people in my ear, don't cry. CPS will take your kids, and they had me thinking all these crazy, horrible things. I said,
Mm.
CPS take my kids for crying about their father. Like, wouldn't they want me to show emotion about a man that I loved?
Right.
So I knew that was nonsense.
That's
But
craziness.
yes, I had a lot of people in my ear. Um, but yeah, I'm an open book. If there's anything you want to ask, go ahead and ask.
I think that, you know, I felt for me, and when my husband died, and me just kind of like being out there, I feel like people were looking at me differently, like, judging me, right? It's like, and I only had 2 kids, okay? And I felt like they were like, "Wait a minute, you're this irresponsible being. You have 2 kids and,
Yeah.
their father." And so I feel like, sometimes I also wanna talk about, like, the shame that's put on us, and without people really realizing, like, hey, I was married, my kids, their dad died, like, I'm not just out here just being, reckless.
Oh,
um and so, can you kind of like tell about those feelings,
oh,
or you
absolutely. I went through a lot of what people call it people pleasing.
Mhm.
I told everywhere I went, I felt like I had to explain myself. Oh, I said, hey, my husband passed away. I'll be at the grocery store, and I would get some of the most dirtiest looks. And I'm like, they don't even know my story. Like, I'm just here with 8 kids, and I'm just prancing through yes, I'm prancing through the aisles. And I'm like, I just end up saying it out loud. I was like, I lost my husband, so I would appreciate y'all not staring at me. And my oldest daughter, Bella, she would just start bawling because she was like, Mom, you shouldn't have to say that everywhere we go. It just got to a point where it was everywhere I went, Kim, I would have to say that. I said, I'm going to just get a shirt that says that. I said, because people just stare and they don't even know what I'm dealing with. They just see me with
Right.
all of these kids and just immediately think, oh, she's living off the government. She got amount of baby daddies. Like, they just thinking all these wild things.
Mhm.
And so it was a lot of shame that came with that. And I had to get to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't care about this no more. Y'all gonna judge me whether my man was at the grocery store with me or whether my man was where he is in heaven. Like, y'all don't need to know my whole synopsis of why I got here. So
Right.
then I started getting closer with God. I started connecting. I got baptized twice. And I just started saying, like, hey, I want you to send me some people that are non-judgmental people, some people that can actually understand my journey. And that's when I came friends with people. I actually met Fred Hammond last year in December 2024. We were at the Potter House in Frisco. He blessed my family with a Christmas blessing. It was beautiful. The whole church was beautiful, and they just had done so much for us. And he was just like, I don't know. Fred Hammond is an amazing gospel singer, and the crazy part about it was we were actually singing "No Weapon Formed Against Me Shall Prosper" to get us through our trial.
Mhm.
And to be able to come and be invited to the Potter House where he was just that month, and him publicly say, hey, I want to talk to Danielle Wiley. I heard she lost her husband to asthma and she has those beautiful kids. And he said, I want to give you a blessing. I mean, I just broke down.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. I said, this reached Fred Hammond, little old me. And, it just made me realize that somebody actually, God was sending people to heal me.
Mhm.
So yes, it. I will say that it takes a lot, especially to pick up the slack. I had to call a lot of the debt collectors that was after my husband and let them know that he is no longer here because they
Mhm.
kept calling. They were sending medical bills, and it just became overwhelming. Every time I open up a medical bill, I see his name and the procedures that they did, and I'm like, it's like reliving it all over again.
Right. Right. That yeah, that has to be tough. And I think one other thing, like I don't know if you've seen it. Like I just started like this little foundation. It's like maybe about 2 or 3 months ago. I started actually. I introduced it on his death anniversary, which was in August. And so I think that because just going from like having for me it was a two-parent household, right? Like as far as like an income,
Yep.
going to just now me providing. And I feel like there wasn't enough resources. Like I didn't know who to call. Like I went through this point, I was like struggling. Like I was just like, can I just get some help on the light bill?
Yeah. At this point, yeah.
So yeah. And so even though it was small, like, I'm starting to try to give out little small donations of love because it's hard and people just I think that sometimes, we are still living this every day, right? We're
No
still
matter
living
what.
it, and to everybody else, the world is still going, and it's still going. We just kind of got stopped, and we just kind of got stuck in that moment, and it's still going. And so I kind of wanted to be like, kind of like a beacon of light to mothers out there. Um, so I think that the fact that you are doing this and you're doing this alone and and now I know you've moved on now and you have someone, but prior to, I think that's just it's commendable. And I don't even know how I could not, you have like great patience, I'm sure. But I don't know how,
Yes.
but I'm proud of you. Just watching your page and stuff, I could just say
Thank
that
you
I'm
so
proud
much.
of you.
Thank you.
So and I know that too, like getting back out there and dating. I know that that's like a big thing too with a lot of widows, but I read both ends. I read a lot of widows. Some of them like they never ever want to date again or remarry again. They want to just, and then of course there's the flip side, and there's others that do. They want to get out there. I definitely, I am dating, and so I definitely want to be remarried again.
Yeah.
And so how was that for you getting back out there in the world? Like,
Sis, if I'm being honest, it was like don't. It was like pee in the water at first. It was pee in the water. I don't know. It just it a lot of men want you to settle, and I'm
mhm,
not a settler. I'm like I'm not settling for less than I deserve. I'm sorry. So
right.
the bare minimum, you got to be like. And I started comparing them. I was like, when my husband was here, I can get takeout every day, and it didn't matter what it was. And now you telling me I gotta cook every day and get takeout once a week, like what? So it was just like, like it just was different bargains. But it took a lot it took a lot of dating, and I
Mhm,
even dated different races. Like there was an Indian guy and there was a white guy. I'm like, I like my black man. Like I love y'all so bad. Like I can't see myself with nobody else. I love black men. Like so I just went back to my side. I'm like, okay, this feels comfortable. So it's a lot because the guy that I got pregnant by, he was just like, man, like your story, like you have all of your kids. Most people give up their kids after they go through something traumatic like that. Like for you to have all your kids, taking care of them, you don't ask nobody for no help. He was like, that's a big deal. You doing your thing. I'm like, yeah, I am. I have to sometimes give myself, though, I have to celebrate myself because
mhm,
I don't feel like I do that a lot because I'm so used to like, oh, it's nothing. That's what I'm supposed to do. But my therapist was like, no, it's something. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna celebrate yourself because you
mhm,
are doing that. So I had to change. I had to reprogram my brain. Like
mhm,
I used to wake up panicky for no reason. Now I don't wake
mhm,
up panicky no more. Like I just was like, just on the 16th last week, it made 2 years. And I did not cry. The kids, we were sitting in the kitchen. We were talking about good memories of their father. We were playing some music. We were all dancing and laughing. The only one that did cry was my daughter Brielle, and she's 5. No, she's 6. She just turned 6 in September, and she was just like, "I wonder, do Daddy see us?" And I said, "Baby, he's everywhere with us. He's never far away."
Mm-hmm.
And she just was like, "I miss him so much." And I said, "Yeah, we all do." So, it just gets to those moments where you have to kind of like let the kids know that even though life is going on for mommy, that
Mm-hmm.
mommy still loves daddy. Like that's not going to change my love for your father. And that's what I told my kids, because when I introduced to them that I was having another baby, they were like excited. But there was one child, my daughter Bailey, she was just like, "What are you doing?" She was just like, "I'm not excited about it." I said, "Why?" And she said, "Hold on, Brazil." She said, "Because I feel like you moved on from daddy fast." And I said, "Well, I did move on from daddy fast." I said, "I just kind of wanted to move on for my own sake. I want to be able to love again. Like, I still have a lot of love in me." Sometimes that shuts people down. You get to a point, you're like, when he first passed, I said, "I'm not dating anybody. I don't want to be married. Just get out of my face." And
Mm-hmm.
family was like, "You're 30." I'm like, "I know, but I don't want to." So I was like, "I don't want no kids. I don't want nobody. I just don't want any man." So to have a different outlook and a different perspective now in 2025, I think that means that I've healed a lot emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I want other widows to understand. Like, no matter what the family members think, no matter what anybody thinks, you are vindicated. You're able to move forward in a healthy way,
Mm-hmm.
because life does not stop. It keeps going, and our loved ones will want us to move on. They will want us to have healthy role models in front of our kids.
Right.
They want our kids to be loved again. They want that for us. They wouldn't want us to sit around just sad for the rest of our lives. So
Right.
I'm glad that you're dating. That's good. And I mean, you deserve to smile. You're beautiful. You're radiant. And
Thank
our past does not define us. And we got this.
Yes, yes, yes. So what kind of things or what typical things do you do to kind of help you like relax, or do you do anything special to kind of get back to you? Like,
So I'm very big on journaling. I journal and I read devotionals every day. I have some apps on my phone that I read. I have a person that sends me, she goes to church and she'll send me like devotionals every day. So I read a lot of devotionals. I connect with myself. I call it grounding.
Mhm,
I'll just kind of go outside and I'll put my bare feet on the concrete and I'm like, okay, I'm grounding myself. It's like I have to kind of reprogram my mind when those thoughts come in that like I'm not good enough, or like my past is making me feel bad about what happened.
mhm,
I have to, or I'll eat my favorite food or listen to my favorite song. Because there's times where I'll get sad and I'll think about my late spouse, and I'm like, this song pops up in my head. And they say that's because our spirit guides are trying to connect with us. So I'm like, okay, I'll play it on the radio, and I'll play it, and I'm smiling, and I get goosebumps. I'm like, oh, he must be here dancing with me, and I just can't see him. So it's like, it's just different things that I have to do to remember that, yes, that happened to me and that made me become a different person, but it also did not break me down and make me become an evil person, because you have some people that have gone through a loss and
mhm.
they turn bitter.
Oh, you finished? I'm sorry, I
No,
didn't
I'm
know.
I'm done.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that a lot of times the trauma, it does cause people to become bitter, and it's sad, but I get it. I get it. I totally understand being stuck. Um but I'm glad that you are able to to have healed and you're in such a better place.
Hmm.
um I guess that really, is there anything that, any other advice that you would want to give to widows, or, to kind of help them along their journey? I know each person is different, but sometimes, just people really don't, we kind of feel like we're alone, like we're just going through it by ourselves, and we just, nobody else is going or experiencing the things that we're experiencing. So sometimes, we may think it's small, but just that small thing can help somebody else, through their journey.
So I think for me, my takeaway would be to never think you're alone. Whether you're talking about it publicly on a social platform, a social media platform, there's somebody out there that can relate to your story.
Hmm.
Now, you just have to do the root work within yourself and know that it's okay to share your story,
Right.
because the enemy gets you to a point where you're like, I don't want to share my story. Share
Hmm.
it, talk about it, help others heal, even if it's a book. I said I wanted to start writing a book, in the beginning of next year, get my story out there and let people know, like, hey, this is what happened. And at the age of 30, I've had people tell me, like, oh man, that's so young to become a widow. And I'm 80, and they're like, we became a widow at 80. And I'm like, I know, so it's different. You just want to have relatability. And
Hmm.
a widow, that don't that doesn't define you for the rest of your life.
So
You
true.
are capable of being loved again. You're capable of being married again. And that's one thing I have to tell myself, like, my late husband is going to send somebody that's going to come and shape my life and do everything that I wanted from him. And
Yes.
God knows that I'm so happy that I'm able to look at it like this now,
Hmm.
because in the first half, I thought it was going to kill me. I'm not even going to lie. I was like, this is too much. Like, but you are valued. Your heart is pure. You're like, when you have pure intentions, I feel like the universe will provide everything else you need. And as far as resources, I mean, I did a lot of looking online to try to find out different resources, because
Hmm.
I felt like people were gatekeeping and they wouldn't tell me. I'm like, where do I go for this? I felt like a deer in headlights. Where do I go for this? I need extra help with my light bill or my rent, or like,
Hmm.
what's going on? So it's like you have to get to a point of opening up and telling your story in order to get those resources.
Right. 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 I agree. I agree. So before we leave, I definitely want you to share how people can follow you and how they can support you. So yes.
Absolutely. So you can follow us on YouTube. It's the Wiley Family 2.0. And it's also on TikTok, the Wiley Family 2.0. And we have a Lemonade page. So if you follow us on TikTok and you go to our bio, you'll be able to see both links for YouTube and TikTok. YouTube and Lemonade 8. And there we just vlog, and I post up some on the day memories and show you guys a little bit about what I do. And yeah, that's it.
Well, I appreciate you so much. So, so much. You're such a beautiful soul. And thank you for taking time out of your day to come and talk to little old me. And